Hi there guys, I'm James. Welcome to Mountain Fencing Home and Gardens. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install a fence around a tree, fitting the profile of the tree perfectly, whilst maintaining the strength of the fence throughout. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to all the people who have subscribed so far. We've literally just hit our 1,000 subscriber milestone. I'm incredibly grateful and I can't thank you enough for subscribing. I truly am humbled. Now, if you've got a big tree on your boundary line where you want to install a fence, you've got one of 4 options you can go with. One, you can divert around the tree. This of course means you'll probably lose a bit of your property and it might not look as nice as if you went straight up to the tree. 2, you can fence up to the tree but leaving a gap between the last fence post and the tree. This probably isn't a good option if you've got pets that you want to keep in the garden or if perhaps you don't get on with your neighbours very well. 3 is remove the tree, and of course that would be a big shame to remove such an old beautiful tree from your garden. And then 4, you can do what I'm about to show you, which is fence up to the tree, perfectly fitting the profile of the tree. The main problems you're going to have when trying to install a fence close up to a big tree is of course the roots that are in the ground. You can see that we've pre-dug this hole and this was as far as we could get to the tree without hitting any major roots. So this fencing construction method that I'm about to show you now is face fixed to the posts rather than fixing it between the posts, which is going to allow us to extend the fence beyond the last post as close to the tree as we possibly can get while still maintaining stability. To explain this though in a bit more detail, it's probably best that we use a whiteboard. Okay, so if we have a look at this in plan view, that means from above, we have our 2 posts and we need a minimum of 2 posts for this to work, and our tree over in the corner here. What we're going to be doing is fitting a rail on the front face of these posts and then overhanging the end post and going to within 2 inches of the tree. We're going to be fitting a 50mm beveled rail, to allow the water to run off, on a 100mm post. So we're going to need at least 160mm bolt for our fixing to bolt through the rail and through the post and out to the other side. Now of course if you're using timber posts, you literally just screw through the rail into the post or use nails. Now if we have a look at it from the front, you've got your ground here, post, and your other post, and your tree over here. We're going to be installing a 6-foot high fence, so we'll need a minimum of 3 rails. And we'll have to bolt through the rails at all the intersecting points on the posts. We're also going to be fitting a 6-inch concrete gravel board at the bottom. That of course is to prevent the bottom of the fence from rotting. It's also going to act as a good anchor point for a post that we're going to be putting along the back here to support this overhang. This post is called a prick post, and what we'll be doing is screwing through the rails into this post. Like I said, we're also going to drill a hole through the concrete gravel board and anchor this post to the concrete gravel board, and that will just give it that extra bit of support. Now that I've gone through that with you, let's go back to the job site and start by putting in these posts. If you're familiar with my channel already, you should probably know that all fence post holes should be a minimum of 60 centimeters deep and 30 centimeters wide. Prop up the fence post with any supports that you have to hand and level before you concrete it in. We're going to be using a rapid setting concrete which will go off within around 5 minutes, which will allow us to work on the fence immediately. Fill the hole up with a third full of water, and then we're using 1.5 to 2 bags per post. Top up with some water and then mix in with a bar to make sure that there's no dry powder in the mix. To be able to attach a concrete gravel board to these posts, we'll need to fit a piece of timber to the bottom of the post, which is the same thickness as the rails. This will bridge out the concrete gravel board and allow the feathers to sit on top, and it will also allow us somewhere to bolt the concrete gravel board to. Because of the slight angle in the profile of the tree, we also have to cut this angle into the concrete gravel board. Measure the widest and the shortest point between the post and the tree, mark that angle on the concrete gravel board and then cut it off. Once your gravel board's cut, offer it up into position just to check your measurements and that it fits correctly. And at this point you can then mark up the position of the hole that you'll need to drill into the concrete gravel board to be able to bolt this to the post. Now there's a bit of a knack to drilling holes through these concrete gravel boards without cracking it and blowing the back out. Essentially, you're going to need to drill from both sides of the concrete gravel board to the middle. Start off your hammer drill off of hammer, just to start it off, and then you can switch to hammer drill and then drill to the middle of the gravel board. Then you switch your concrete gravel board over, mark the exact position on the opposite side, and then repeat the same process, starting it off slow, switching to hammer and drilling to just the middle of the post. You'd need to start off with a small drill bit to begin with, and then you can switch it up to the correct size drill bit for the bolt. If you're going to be fitting the rails by yourself, then clamps are going to be your best friend. In fact, they're pretty much absolutely essential for this. Once you've got both ends clamped into position, then you're ready to drill through from the other side. Using a 10mm wood drill bit, drill through from the opposite side for the bolts. Hammer the bolt through from the opposite side, and then you're ready to tighten up the nut. Obviously this needs to be repeated on both posts and for the 3 rails. So you've got your basic framework all set up. As you can see, we've left the rails a couple of inches short of the tree. That's just to accommodate any new growth from the tree or any movement. Now, obviously we've got an overhang, and if you can imagine, the weight of the wood that we're going to be attaching to this is going to be bearing down on these rails, and over time it could sag. So the next thing you can do to just prevent this is put what we call it in the trade a prick post in, and that's essentially just another post that is just hammered into the ground and screwed into each of the rails, which is then just going to support the rails. And then the other thing we can do is put a centre stump at the bottom here and then bolt through the gravel board into the post, and that's just going to keep everything completely rigid. So you're just going to need to level up the prick post behind and then screw straight through the rails into the piece of 2x2 that we're using here, using 5x100mm screws. Repeat this by screwing through each rail, 2 screws in each rail. Of course, now that we've got the prick post in position, we also need to bridge between that post and the concrete gravel board in order to bolt the concrete gravel board into place. So you're going to need to screw a little cleat in, 6-inch cleat, just on the back of the prick post. A couple of 100mm screws will do, and then you can then screw the coat screw through the front of the gravel board into that prick post. Once you've got all this in place, you can see that this is really nice and secure now. That's not going to go anywhere at all. Ready to begin the feathering, and you start off just as normal. Just when you get to the end here is where it's a little bit different. So if you've never feathered before, you begin with the thick edge of the feather to the post, and every subsequent feather is an inch overlapped to the previous one. Okay, so now when you've got to the end with your feathering, you're left with this little bit of a gap. Now this is where it's a little bit tricky to cut the feather in around the tree, but to make it as easy as possible, I'm going to use a compass, and what we're going to be doing is running this down between the tree and the feather, marking out on the feather the profile of the tree, and then we'll go and cut that out. You'll need to measure the widest point between the fence and the tree, plus add on another inch for the overlap of the feathers, so that's 4 inches. And then you want to set your compass to that distance. So first of all, you want to level up your feather, butt it up to as close to the tree as you can, and then you want to start off marking between the tree and the feather. Okay, let's see if the hard work's paid off. And there you go, fits perfectly up against the tree. But don't forget, you want to leave a bit of a gap, because obviously the tree is going to move over time, potentially grow. But that's just about perfect. Thank you guys for watching, but don't forget to click that little red button at the bottom, subscribe, and also please like the video, because it would really help the video to get traction and views, and it would help my channel to grow. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.